Hello, in this video will be an overview of the Prepreg curing process. Right now I'm in the Rover 2022 folder, in the composite Rover folder. I'm going to open up this Google Doc for the Prepreg curing process. You can print out this checklist or read along. I'm going to go through most of these items and look at some images to explain what we're talking about. First thing, you want to make sure that you have all your supplies. You want to make sure that the oven is in the welding shed directly underneath the vent hood. You want to make sure that you've got the exhaust fan turned on for 4 hours. You'll need to extend that during the middle of the cure. You also want to make sure that all the panels on the oven are snug. If any of them are loose, you can tighten them with a screwdriver by hand. Do not over tighten. It's really easy to rip through the foam. You're going to make sure that the green polyiso foam is in the bottom. You can use that to support the mold. Make sure it's a good height. You want to make sure that the lid is facing towards the front of the oven. That's marked with the blue tape right there. The heat gun is going to go in the front right-hand corner of the oven. It'll be on a small concrete block. Make sure that that's inserted. So just about an inch or two of the heat gun extends into the inside of the oven. The silver barrel should be showing. The heat gun is in this black case. The cord and all the accessories should be with it. You'll have to plug it to an extension cord and make sure it's up and running. Right here in the trigger setting, the number 1 is the fan running with no heat. You can use that to cool down after you use the gun for a couple hours. The trigger setting 2 is the fan and the heat. You can see this is the black dial right here is how you adjust the heat. And this little indicator right here tells us that we're on a temperature setting of 6 right now. This is the data logger. This is the temperature recorder. It comes in a black case. Inside the case you should find the temperature logger, the temperature probes or thermocouples, and a small USB cord for connecting it to a laptop. You want to make sure that the thermocouples are plugged in correctly. One of these may be broken already, so it may be down to 3, but 3 is more than enough. They're plugged in. There's a thicker and a thinner part. You make sure that they go in the corresponding holes, which it will only go in one way. As you put the thermocouples into the lid, you're going to match the numbers on the thermocouples with the numbers on the holes. And that'll just make sure that they get in the lid in the correct locations. The reason why we have different thermocouples is they are different lengths down into the oven. The one in the back is closest to the lid, and then they kind of come farther down to get a different variation of temperature based upon height. Okay, you want to make sure that the mold is secure in the oven. Nothing in the oven other than the pre-approved materials, the polyiso foam. Make sure you have the high temp surface coat, the wax, the PVA, blue peel ply, the high temp breather cloth, the high temp bagging film, and the yellow tacky tape. No blue tape or other materials in the oven that can't handle the high temp. You're going to use the green vacuum hose and the metal connector to make sure that the item is properly vacuum bagged. This blue nozzle right here, you want to make sure currently this is in the off position. This is closed. You want to rotate this 90 degrees so that it is in line with the hose, and that way the vacuum generated will go into the part. This shows the correct position, and as well as the hose from the compressor hooked up to the vacuum generator. We want this blue nozzle to be parallel or in line with the green vacuum hose. Make sure that the part sits in the oven. It should be close to the top, within about 6 to 12 inches of the lid. Make sure that the hose does not extend above the top of the lid. You may need to put the nozzle on the side of the part, but that'll be determined when you're vacuum bagging this. But kind of make sure you plan ahead so that this nozzle doesn't stick up above the top of the oven. Go ahead and start the compressor and ensure that you're getting a proper vacuum out of the vacuum bagging materials. You can go ahead and close the oven. At that point, we should be done with what's on the inside. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the computer. I'm going to open up the SE520 software. This can also be found. Let me go back. You can click on this link right here to download the SE520 software. You click over here to manuals. You can not only can you download the manual for this, but you can also come over here and download the software. You need to download and install this on a PC. This does not work on Macs. The manual, if we come down, I think it's about page 20, talks about the process to start up. Turn on the thermometer, that's the big data logger, connect it to a PC, and then start the SE520 program. So when you do that, the software should look like this. There's a couple changes you need to make. First thing you want to do is you want to uncheck this split box. Puts everything on the same setting. We're going to change this sampling rate to once every 15 seconds. You can just move that up and down and then select whatever number you want. We're going to click on the y-axis here, and we're going to change all of these to be 60 as our minimum temperature, and then 300 as our maximum temperature. And I'm just going to do tab on my keyboard and type all those in. 60 degrees is a little bit below room temperature, and 300 is our maximum temperature. So that's going to give us a good temperature range to make sure we check that. So we've got the SE520 software started. We've unchecked the split screen. We've adjusted the max and min temperatures, and we got the sampling rate to every 15 seconds. You're also going to want to go ahead, minimize this. You're going to want to start a new spreadsheet. So I'll come down here to the spreadsheet. It's going to ask you to make a copy. So we'll do that. So this is a previous one. You can save this one so you can kind of see the time setting and the temperatures to follow and the degrees to follow, but give this a new name and make yourself a new blank one of these so you can record the temperatures manually. The software should do it, but a lot of times it's easier to have this as a backup record and just use the spreadsheet as your primary. So once again, I'll start the spreadsheet a few minutes before I'm ready to go. The heat gun will be off. The temperature inside the oven is 71. And then I make sure I pick a 9:30 or 9:45, a nice even time to start, so I can remember to check every 15 minutes throughout the day. So at 9:30, the temperature was 71 degrees. I just looked at the values on the thermometer, the data logger, and they're going to be all about the same value. They're not going to be exactly. So I just kind of averaged it in my head. I didn't do any really math. I just kind of looked at it and said that looks about 67 degrees. Okay, and this is a different temperature than the one I'm doing right here. But you write down the temperature. I turned the heat gun on, and then at 9:45 I came back and checked in. It was 108 degrees, so I changed the heat setting to 4. Came back in at 10 o'clock. It was 138, so I changed the temper setting to 5. The degrees per minute, the manufacturer's instructions, if we look back over here at the properties, we got this from Composite Envisions. If we look at the cure cycle, it says that 250 is our maximum temperature for about 45 minutes, and it says that the ramp rates must not exceed 5 degrees per minute during initial cure. So you want to make sure we'll use the spreadsheet to track and see how fast we're heating. Okay. Once we've got everything set up, On the data software, I'll go ahead. My software is not hooked up to the data connector, but you would come up here to this button right here that says Start Graphing Real-Time Data, and that'll start collecting data. And I'll start doing that before I turn the heat gun on. I'll come over here to the spreadsheet, and I'll start doing this before I'm ready to turn the heat gun on, just so I'm collecting data before I turn the heat gun on. At 9:30 is when I turn the heat gun on, and that's when I start taking data. Okay, so we're going to turn everything should be set up like this. You can have the data logger actually on the oven or on the shelf on the welding table. You can see that the USB cord has got to connect to the laptop. And then we're just going to go ahead and make sure that you monitor the cook every 15 minutes. You can go ahead and start recording. Close the lid, start recording the software, start recording the spreadsheet. Turn the heat gun on to temperature level 3, and then start watching it every 15 minutes. Once the oven gets up to about 100, 120 degrees or so, make sure that you wear your respirator, and make sure you wear your respirator until it gets back down to room temperature. You want to dwell, make sure that you hang out at about 250 for at least 45 minutes, and then make sure that you cool off nice and slowly until it's back at room temperature. Once it's back around 100 degrees, you can crack open the lid. I would just let it sit for a couple hours until I was done, back until it's at room temperature. Make sure you allow all components to cool and put everything away when you're done. And hopefully that will give you good results. You can kind of watch the graph as we go along. Those are the temperature probes inside of there. And I think that should be it. If you have any questions about how to run the curing oven, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks so much. Have a great day.